And here's another case of Child Protective Services not doing their damn job and an innocent child being unalived by a parent. This right here is Christopher Gregor. On April 2nd, 2021, he beat his 6-year-old son, Corey, to death. Corey began complaining of nausea and shortness of breath. He took him to a local hospital. Very shortly after arriving, Corey started having seizures, and then about an hour after that, he was pronounced dead. At that time, he got in his car and left the state for Tennessee. Now, Chris had just started seeing Corey in September of the previous year, and in between that time, his mom made numerous calls to CPS because he would show up and he would have bruises all over his body, and he would tell her what his dad did to him. But CPS, despite having all of that evidence, they didn't do anything about it. At the time of his death, he had bruises all over his chest, his arms, his legs, everywhere, and he had an abrasion on his hip. His mom said that it's almost like the more Chris got away with it, the worse he got. Less than 2 weeks before his death, there was an incident at Chris's apartment complex in the fitness center where he made Corey get onto a treadmill and then sped it up. And Corey couldn't keep up, so he falls off the back. And Chris puts him back on it and makes it go even faster. And he's panting and short of breath, keeps falling off the back. And at one point, Chris actually grabs him, puts him back onto the treadmill again, and starts biting the top of his head. It was all on video. His mom filed an emergency custody order while it was being investigated, but they denied it. The judge basically said that there was no signs of abuse or anything that Chris was doing that was inappropriate. She, of course, called CPS as well, and they advised her to take him into the doctor. So she takes him into the pediatrician. This is just one day before his death. She takes him into the pediatrician. They did x-rays and checked his blood, but everything came back fine. She dropped Corey off with his father, Christopher Gregor, on April 2nd, and at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Chris sent her a text message to let her know that he was taking him into the hospital to be checked out. In addition to all the bruises, Corey also had cardiac and liver contusions. The police found Christopher Gregor in a hotel in Tennessee, and he peacefully surrendered and turned himself in. He was charged with first-degree murder, but on March 22nd, of course, he pled not guilty. His defense attorney tried to argue that he died from complications with pneumonia. Now, over the course of an 18-month period, Corey's mom, Bree, contacted CPS over 100 times, whether it be text message, email, phone calls, and she said a lot of times they just made her feel like she was a bother, and sometimes nobody would even respond to her. She had sent them tons of video evidence. Witnesses had said that Chris had thrown Corey off of a boat. He would come home with a busted lip and swollen face and bruises everywhere. They had all of that. They had plenty of evidence, yet they always said that he wasn't in any sort of danger or harm. So legally, despite knowing her son was being horrifically abused, she had no other choice but to send him to Chris's apartment when it was his parenting time. Otherwise, she would have been in contempt of a court order and could have been fined or arrested or whatever else they decided to do to her. The system needs to change. There was no reason why this innocent, sweet little 6-year-old boy had to lose his life.